So issues like that goes, and that's where the whole idea of, it's bigger than just the police. Because then you go into, all right, if you have an encounter with the police and you try and enforce, the law upon them, you then have to take it to a courtroom to have it settled.
Yeah, and then there's its own set of issues as well. So, do you think that these reforms are enough to satisfy the Black Lives Matter movement or their goals? Or what do you think their goals
I think it's treading lightly
are?
on both. Well, I can't even say on Republican half. But I do know the Democratic bill is definitely treading lightly. And I'm not saying you need to completely reform it. I think it does need to be looked at in a much deeper aspect than it is. I'm not actually. We did read up on it, but I can't remember exactly what the bill said. I should have took notes on that specifically. But I do believe that it's something. It's something that needs. Well, first and foremost, needs to be bipartisan, and the fact that you can have the Republicans have pretty much saying we're not touching this whatsoever. Like, this is a no-go for us.
Yeah,
is already putting up a wall in the first place.
It's a weird thing because they're both saying it about the other ones, even though the bills are about 70% the same. I think the only real difference is the qualified immunity. Everything else is the same, but they're both like, no, we're not going to talk to you, which is not good. Which also means nothing gets done. Which means that either the Black Lives Matter movement peters out, or unless there's some group or person that takes charge as like the leader, there's no leader of this movement to negotiate with for what needs to get done. So they being Congress is just off the cuff saying like, yeah, we think this will be fine. But
and
it's like
having no one to actually discuss whether.
Yeah, there's no discussions with people on the street. I mean, like, well, what do you guys see? What do you want? That's terrible leadership. You're a good leader. You're going to go talk to people. Say, hey, what do you see? Like, let's come up with a plan. Because then once you talk to those people, and those people have buy-in because they're part of the plan. Right now, there's no buy-in because nobody trusts Congress. And so, regardless of if they get this passed, there's no... And so that puts Congress in a lose-lose because they have no one to negotiate with to even show that leadership. Not that they would anyways, but... Let's assume that they would. There's no one to do that with. So then what is the goal? I've heard a lot of defund the police, abolish the police.
Which could be skewed, as we talked about. It could be skewed or painted in weird or very different
which
ways.
Can be skewed. Yeah, and the problem with that is it's a headline. It's a catchy thing without any nuance. So if you defund the police, we're going to jump in a little bit, but if you defund the police... Right now, police don't make, I don't know what the exact number is, but they don't make a lot. What incentive do people who are qualified have to become cops? It's like someone who has the temperament, the capability to actually have the gun and the badge and be in a position where they can be in charge of somebody's life. The people who are capable of that are off running companies and managing people and teams and like are doing all sorts of great things because those are the people that have the capabilities to do that. There's no incentive for those people to become police. People that become police are either they have a sense of duty, or two, they can't get another job.
And that's their interest.
And that's their interest. And almost if you... So it's weird. It's like, so you're saying you're gonna defund the police. It's like, okay, well, if you have less money to pay the cops, you're gonna get less quality people.
And that's something we discussed earlier.
Which is a problem because if you think of yourself as a marketable entity, like what will the market pay for my skill set? X number of dollars. The less salary that is available, the less quality of service or individual you're going to get wanting to do that. And then to me that seems like the cycle will then just repeat itself. And then on top of that, the same thing goes with the training. If you want the best training, you're going to have to put money into that. Right now the best like the people who are the best at training are like in the SEAL teams and the Army Rangers and like all that because they get paid more there. Nobody wants to come train the cops because they don't get paid anything to do it. It's like I think Jocko, especially now that everybody like the wide consensus of public opinion is anti-police for the most part, except for like the people who are running around with the American flags with the blue stripe. But like Jocko Willink, he's a former Navy SEAL. He was in charge of the tactical training for the SEAL teams. He would run those guys through scenario after scenario after scenario with simunition, and they'd watch it back and be like, "What can I do better?" Like cops don't get that sort of training. That's what they need, but that training costs money. So if you take money away from them, what are you left with? Like I don't.
And my thing is, and we discussed this earlier, is about the amount of money that police units do get, or police departments, and wherever it is, state, local, or federal. Where does the money specifically go? And now we're talking about training and how we have to talk about increased funding towards training. My gripe with it is the amount of military-style equipment that the police do get.
Oh, for sure.
And
they don't need that.
They don't need all of the equipment. And
No.
it's weird to see them painted. And I'm not a police officer, but I swear that some of them choose the police being a police officer instead of a military, and they still see it in the same paradigm.
Definitely.
In the same structure.
It's almost like I don't have to go through boot camp, and I still get to have this giant gun.
Guns. I still get to have all of the gear, and 9 out of 10 times they end up either keeping some of the gear or having some of the gear at home.
Yeah.
Then they choose to go buy their own weapons, and nothing's wrong with owning weapons. But it's the mentality that you get from being a police officer. It's as we talked about earlier, the structure and the entire entity of a police department, and the way they see things, the way they think, the way they treat the people who are on the police force. They see it as a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's weird because I was talking to my mom about this, and it feels like they're almost like domestic military is how they see themselves.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we are the foreigners in another, like if they're in another country, like in Iraq. We are the foreigners that they see us. They're there to protect their country, they're there to protect the flag and enforce the law. And we're the people. American citizens are the ones who are then causing the issue. And they're the ones being called upon to go and resolve the issue. All the it's weird to see them continually react with more brutality when the entire purpose of the protest is to protest police brutality.
Yeah.
I'm like the whole point of the movements is getting missed.
Yeah.
You know.
It is for sure. So I guess instead of it's reallocation of funds.
Reallocation of funds.
Yeah,
to see the budget and exactly where the money is going.
Yeah.
To try and reshape it from that point.
Yeah. So that would cause some oversight then. It's like from where I guess. Oh, one of the other things in the police reform bill, there was we already talked about the national database, but if they were to do something similar, a national database for budget accountability, where's the money going? That would probably be useful, I guess. I'm hesitant to say useful because I would almost not want the government to be in charge of that because they're already wrapped up in the whole scheme system type deal. Some independent auditing third party type deal might be best.
Do you think it's something the public should be able to see, or specifically?
No, I have nothing in specific. I just I know there's companies that come in and do audits and that sort of thing. Something like that would probably be, but it would have to be like yearly, like a yearly annual audit, and then that data would have to get reported back to some governing body that would say like, okay, they're not complying. We're going to take away federal funding from them because they didn't comply, and that would be the incentive for them to comply because they wouldn't get the funding the following fiscal year.
And that's something I'm pretty sure that the bills talk about.
Yeah, it's like if they don't ban chokeholds, then they're not going to get the federal funding. Whereas the Democrat bill just makes it illegal to use them, which I don't.
My issue with the whole incentive one is you're still leaving it in the department's hands to report it, whether or not.
Sure.
You know, so if they choose to report it. And, you know, I guarantee, especially in New York, police departments already are kind of shady about what they report. They have cases that they're not necessarily going to resolve, but issues that get reported to them that don't even go on the books.
No.
So
yeah, for sure.
If you're talking about then withholding federal funds, if you don't exactly tell us everything all of the times,
then they have no incentive to tell, which is where they would have to go get audited. But so it's a whole. It's like that's what. Kind of the structure of what needs to happen, but then to make sure it actually happens is another issue. I don't know. But the thing is, with some of the departments, like if they're so corrupt that there's no changing them, it's like you think you should abolish that police department. Fine, let's explore it. Let's see why they're as corrupt, what is making it that way, and then we can build a new one. But to abolish it without the plan in place is almost like I know this is the extreme of, but like when in Seattle, that group took over that like 6-block radius and turned it into their own like little, they called it an autonomous zone, and like little warlords pop up, or like when Izzy was talking about in the first episode, gangs pop up when the state fails the people to protect the people. If there's no police, then it's like, okay, well, that vacuum of power is going to get filled somehow, and sometimes what fills it is worse than what was already there. And so that's another thing to be aware of. I guess it's extreme, but also it already happened in Seattle and Portland for a little bit, but they tried to do it to the mayor's apartment. The cops cleared it out in like a day. So like, but still, I don't know.
mentioned that is the extreme.
Yeah.
So,
but possible though, nonetheless.
Yeah.
And especially as divisive as things have become. Like 2 years ago, I would never have dreamed that I'd have seen a 6-block radius of a city blockaded by citizens with guns. Never would even dreamed. And now 2 have popped up in the space of 2 weeks. So yeah, it's extreme, but also not unfathomable. Especially if things don't get fixed. And who's to say that things are getting fixed, because there's no leader of the movement to negotiate with. So we're really, I don't see how this ends unless someone takes charge, like steps up and says, like, with the support of the movement to negotiate on their behalf. I don't really see a way to get out of it based on the circumstances that we've